characteristics of cloud computing, right? And when I say we were talking about characteristics of cloud computing, what did we discuss so far? Let's open Google Online Paint, JS Paint. Okay. So we were talking about features, or you can say characteristics. Hmm. Okay, I believe the font size is small. So I should probably increase this, or this much font size is clear. Okay with everyone. Clear. Okay. Let me do bold at least. This much would be fine. Okay. So now, can you guys help me recall what were we discussing in our last session? SAS, PAS, IS. Okay. We started with the characteristics, then we talked about different cloud computing models, I believe. Hmm? They are known as cloud computing delivery models. Okay. And when I say delivery models, there are three. One is SAS, then we have got PAS, and then we have got IaaS. So in software as a service, can you guys give me an example here? What is the example for SAS? Google services, Office 365, right? Very precise examples. And SAS is basically developed focusing casual users in mind, right? I believe this was the last thing that we were discussing. That what are the kind of targeted audience in case of SAS, PaaS, and IaaS, right? That SaaS is going to target casual users, hmm, or layman users. That's what is being targeted by SaaS. Okay. PaaS is going to target developers, hmm, right? And IaaS is for whom? What is the target audience for IaaS? Data center. Data center is an example for IaaS. Nope. I need to have an example, something like which is being provided to you by some company or a vendor. Just like you gave me an example for Google services, Amazon, right? Amazon is a cloud giant nowadays, okay? So we cannot just say that AWS is IaaS. That is not right. AWS is offering everything, IaaS, PaaS, SaaS, everything, okay? If you guys would have ever tried signing up there and tried using AWS, you will see that AWS is covering a lot of services, whole lot of services. Okay, so my initial question was that IaaS uh, is designed for, what is the target audience for IaaS? For whom IaaS is designed? So IaaS is basically their targeting system admins. Okay, people who deal with the infrastructure in a corporate, people who are responsible for managing the infrastructure in a corporate. Okay, people who handle the infrastructure, they are the target audience in case of IaaS. And if I need to give you a very precise example for IaaS, we have got AWS EC2. Okay, that is Elastic Cloud Compute. Elastic Cloud Compute is an example for IaaS. Okay, let's proceed further. Let's try to do one thing. Hmm. Let's go to the website here. Let's search for Amazon AWS. Let's go in here. You can click on create an account. Okay, to set up your account here. Okay, you can set it up here, or I just need to sign in. I'll click on sign in as I already have an account. You guys can also sign up at AWS. Okay, while signing up, you will be required to enter your credit card details. Okay, and for verification purpose, I believe 1 or 2 rupees are also going to be deducted. Okay, some other competitors for this AWS is like Google Cloud Compute Engine. That's one. Another one is Microsoft Azure. Okay, there are a lot of others, but these are like industry giants. Okay, the leading service providers, and AWS is like something which is trying to win this race. Okay, as a service provider in cloud. So let's just look into what kind of services are being provided by AWS. So when I click here, you can see like how many variety of services are available here. Storage, compute, blockchain, satellite, quantum tech, DBMS, whole lot of stuff is there. Hmm. So I also do not know everything that is available here. Okay. I believe I told you that there are dedicated certification for AWS as well. Hmm. Is it so? Which dialog box?
This participant these chat.
Okay, this participant window.
Yeah.
So my participant window is visible to you as well.
Yes.
I believe.
I cannot see the content. I cannot see the content, but it is the dialog box is visible.
Okay, you cannot see the contents, but dialog box is
But
there.
yes, it's completely covering the screen.
Okay. Now is it fine?
Yeah, at least one is okay. Yeah, should be fine. Covering that
Okay.
much. Thank you.
So I believe I talked about AWS certifications as well. Hmm? I'm not sure. You can just go here to official AWS website and you can see a lot of certifications are being provided by AWS. Okay, here you can see, right? AWS specialty, cloud practitioner, DevOps, DevSecOps, all that stuff. So this is a different niche that you guys can plan to master upon. Okay, totally depends upon your interest. Okay, let's get back. Let me just adjust this thing as well. Can I hide this thing? Just give me a quick second. Let me see. Yeah, now I can do it. Not able to drag it. Yeah, now it's fine. Okay. Okay, let's get back here. Okay, so the thing that we are currently interested right now is EC2. Let's click on EC2. That is Elastic Cloud Compute. So EC2 is IaaS example. Okay, here you can deploy your own operating systems into the cloud. You can deploy your servers. They can be Red Hat servers, Linux servers. They can be Windows-based servers. You can deploy SIEMs. You can deploy firewalls, whatever you feel like in the cloud. Okay, so let's go to the instances first. Okay, we need to go to the instances. Taking some time. Yes, so finally the page has been loaded here. And here you can see I already have some instances existing here. When you are going to set it up for the first time, there is going to be nothing here, empty boxes here, emptiness. So what you need to do is, if you want to deploy a machine in the cloud, you just need to click on launch instance. After clicking on launch instance, here you need to search for your desired instance. Okay, what kind of distro you want. That's what you need to search here. You can see here Ubuntu servers, Windows servers, 2019 and 2016 would also be available here. SQL server. Hmm. So these things are not relevant as of now for us. We are going to search for Kali Linux. Kali Linux and go to AWS Marketplace and select this Kali Linux here. Click on select. And here you can see that for different instance types, different cost is being provided to you. Like if you're going to go for this instance type, this is going to be the cost that you need to pay. And this is on the hourly basis. This much dollar per hour. But this is your hourly cost. Here you can see. So here you can see that we cannot know a lot about these different instance type. So don't worry about that. Just click on next, click on continue. Okay. And here I am provided with this option to select this thing. Okay. Let me do one thing. Let me just try to close this thing. The Firefox, my Firefox was not able to scale properly. That's why I just closed and reopened it. Just click on select. After clicking on select, just click on continue here. So here you can see that you are provided with a detailed instance type options. Okay. So currently I am only eligible for free tier. So I need to select this one. Okay. Otherwise, if you are willing to pay, you can select further instance types as well. So here you can see that I will be provided with one CPU, 2.5 gigahertz of processor of Intel Xeon family, 1 gigs of RAM. This is your RAM column here. This is your RAM, CPUs, and this is your storage. Okay. If I just scroll down here, you can see that from small enterprises to medium enterprises, requirements for all these variety of enterprises are going to be taken care by AWS. Okay, you cannot just say that okay, AWS is not capable of hosting my kind of traffic there, or my kind of requirements cannot be fulfilled by AWS. So that's one example, and this is just currently in between. You can see if I just go all the way to the down, you will see 96 CPUs, 768 GBs of RAM, okay, which is a lot, and 7,500 GBs of SSD. It's like 7.5 TB of 8 SSDs. It's a lot of storage. It's a lot of storage in terms of SSD. Okay. Okay. Currently, I'm going to select the T2.micro option. Okay. Just click on review and launch. Here I'm provided with my fees, like how much fees is going to incur if I'm going to set up this thing. So you can see that because it is free tier, I'm not being charged anything. Okay. And finally click on launch. While clicking on launch, you can see here that I'm provided with these different, this option for key, selecting a key pair. Okay. Create a new key pair, proceed without a key pair. So I can simply click on proceed without a key pair. I can choose an existing key pair. I already have some keys generated. So let's just say that you are doing it for the first time. You are going to click on create a new key pair. Okay. And basically what you are doing here is you are going to create your SSH private keys here. Okay. So that you can, at a later point of time, whenever you want to access your instance, you can do an SSH. Okay. How are you going to manage your instance? How are you going to manage that system which is running in the cloud? That's also a question, right? Can you tell me how are you going to manage that instance? Hmm? Anyone? Manage as in under VPC. VPC, you are trying to say your virtual private cloud. Yes, okay, but how would you be able to remotely access the instance?
SSH.
SSH, right? So for doing an SSH, you need to have your key pairs, right?
Key pairs. Yes. Yes.
Right. So this is that key pairs that I'm referring to right now. These are those key pairs. So let's create a new key pair here, and let's say ch. Yeah, this would be fine. Ch Carly. Okay, and let's click on download key pair. And a .pem file is being prompted to download. Let's click on save file, save, okay. My private key has been downloaded. Now I can use this private key to do an SSH. Okay, let's check this out. Now, once I have downloaded this key pair, you can see a launch instance option appears here. Okay, I can just click on launch instance. Getting started with your software. Brief instructions are being provided here. Your instance are now launching. This instance is being launching. Okay. View user instruction. You can read about them for more information. Why am I not able to open it? Okay. Open your software on AWS Marketplace. Okay. How to connect to your Linux instance. Definitely certain beginner friendly guides. Okay. Some instructions are being provided here. Once your instance is connected to your SSH Kali account. For more information, please use. Okay. So let's just check it out. How can I access it? Let's click on view instances. So here you can see that I have a new instance here, which is up and running now. Let me just rename it. Let me just say ch Kali. So I will be provided with a public IP address as well. Okay, you can see it here. It has been provided, or here as well. You can see it. Let's just copy this one. Go back to my terminal here. Okay, let's get here. Clear. Let's go to the directory where my keys are saved. Arcus downloads. Here you will see that chkali.pem keys are here. So what I can do is I can simply do SSH. Earlier, I believe the user was EC2-user. I'll just confirm it now if this is the right user or not. And I need to use a private key here. So SSH-I CH. Okay. What does it say? It says invalid format. That shall not be the case. Ideally, let's see. Okay, 644 permissions are to open. ls-la. Yeah, permissions are to open. Let me just modify the permissions. chmod 600. Now it is going to work. Still invalid. Let me try to use it with the Kali user. Yeah, I believe Vaibhav, you are trying to say something.
We logged it, right?
Yeah, I have logged in now.
Yeah.
Logged in.
No, actually, I was thinking normally what happened with when we're doing on Windows, we change the PM key to to different format to connect it to PuTTY.
Yeah, so
So I was
that's
just thinking.
no, that is the process that you need to follow if you're using PuTTY.
Yes, or if basically we're having Windows. Yeah,
Yeah, right,
similarly. Yeah.
right.
So I
So
was just
here,
about to, since I didn't saw this kind of a thing, I've never did it on Kali. So
mhm.
I was I was about to say that maybe it is because of that.
No, actually, I can do the same thing, just identically, exactly the same in Windows as well. Okay, you guys can do this thing as an exercise. Set it up, set up a machine. What you need to do is by default, when the key file is going to be downloaded, it is going to be with these permissions 600. Okay, that is only the owner of the file can read write. By default, the permissions are going to be correct, and you can just open your command prompt, do an ssh hyphen I key file, your file name, and your Kali at the rate your target IP address. That is going to work perfectly fine. Okay, so until unless you are not using PuTTY, you do not need to go through that process. This is a, I would say, better process, smooth process. Who am I am Kali. You can see that my terminal has changed actually. Initially I was RKS at the rate Kali, now I am Kali at the rate Kali. Okay, let me just do if config here so that you can see my IP address here. That is 172.31.521/20. This is my cloud instance. Okay, this is not my local Kali Linux. This is something which is running in remote system. So that's why from day one we have been focusing on the CLI part more rather than focusing on the GUI version of stuff. Okay, so these are certain example of those case scenarios where a person who is aware of GUI tools and not aware of CLI tools is going to lag a lot. Okay, so because here you can see that I am not being provided with any GUI. Okay, PWD, where am I?
So for the for the CLI command, do you have you sorry do you did you also learn sed uh, editor SED?
Just give me a minute. See, your voice is very low. I'm just trying
I'm
to
saying
see.
hello. Is it okay now?
No, I believe there are some audio settings I need to configure. I don't know. Let me just see. Um, Playback output devices. That's right. Yeah. You can go ahead. Please
Okay, no,
speak
I was
again.
asking about normal CLI commands to I understand in through Kali
Hmm.
because I'm learning them. But I know about one editor. Well, I got to know about one editor called SED,
Yes, it.
and it's a Unix editor. So
Yeah.
it's a very strange command line editor.
Yes,
It's
yes.
the way they use the flags. It's very difficult. Is it very important to know that in detail of that editor, or it's okay?
No, you. I was not able to follow along till the end. You said it's a very strange text editor. What next?
Yes, yes, it's a very strange one because it uses a lot of different flags. You
Yeah.
see, in a very no, normally in when we're using Nano or when we're using Cat or
Hmm.
the Vim, we are normally using it, so it's not that difficult. But SED is a very difficult kind of a thing when I try to learn it. So, is
Hmm.
it necessary to know in detail about this editor, or it is overuse enough?
No, no, no. It's overview is enough. Okay, because see, there are going to be a lot of text editor, and different text editor are going to provide you with different flexibility and functionality. But at the end of the day, for an individual, it is very difficult to have mastery on all of them. So you just need to stick to one. Okay, I would suggest you to go for Vim. Okay, because it's like standard in it is going to be available in all of the Linux environments. Okay, see, otherwise you will see that there is something known as Emacs as well. Have you
Yes.
heard about that Emacs?
Yes. 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 Yes.
Yeah, so again, that is also going to Emacs is also going to have a steep learning curve. SED is also going to have a steep learning curve, and there is something known as AWK as well, mm, which
That I
are
don't know.
we generally use for cutting something out of a string, formatting our output, something like that. So just a high level overview would be enough. You just need to know that okay, certain things like this exist. If I'm going to need it tomorrow, I will just refer to some kind of a manual and I'll do that stuff. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And one more thing. What is this Tmux?
Tmux is your terminal multiplexer.
Yes.
So it is basically generally done used by system admins, as it basically allows. See, it's like if I just need to give you one uh, quick USP for Tmux is like you can see here on the screen itself. I have an SSH connection right through my shell.
Okay.
If I'm just going to close this shell, what is going to happen? The session is going to be lost.
Yes.
Okay, it is going to be closed automatically. But if I am going to run the same thing in Tmux, I will be provided with the functionality of deattaching this process, deattaching my terminal itself. Okay, so let's say I ran Tmux, and inside Tmux I ran this SSH, and then I deattach that. Or I can say I am running some process which is running again and again, running in loop, and I want to keep it running in the cloud. Okay, so I can just do a Tmux session, establish a session, run the command, deattach the session, close the terminal, go home, sleep, wake up tomorrow, open my Tmux again, open my terminal, then Tmux, reattach that session. Okay, the same thing would be running in the cloud throughout the night. Okay, so it's a terminal multiplexer. Again, that is not something that you will be requiring as of now. Okay, it's a bit of advanced stuff. You will catch up with passage of time, I believe. As of now,
Okay.
yeah. Well, it's again Tmux learning curve is also very steep. Okay, a lot of shortcut keys. Okay, a lot of terminals in a single pane. You can divide your pane. You can divide your window horizontally, vertically. You can multitask. Okay, as a beginner, it is going to make your task more complex rather than simplifying it. Okay,
Okay.
so I would suggest you as a beginner, stay away from it. Once you are into this thing for 3 4 months, then you can try experimenting with Tmux as well.
Okay. But most of the functionality we can do it with normal command line. You don't have to
So
really get in.
most of the
Most of the functionality what we are doing, whether it's a pen testing or whether it's normal day-to-day function or everything,
yeah
Kali normal CLI is enough, right?
yeah CLI is enough, right?
CLI, it's just that somebody specifically asks for a tmux, then only we need to use it. Otherwise, though, most of the functionality, even in companies also, it's hardly used. Well, like specifically asked, then only we use, right?
Right. So see, Tmux is not something which is going to be asked to you. It's like if you are a system admin and then your job requires it, like you want to simplify your own task. Nobody is going to say that use Tmux. Okay.
Okay,
Yeah, it's
okay,
like you are seeing other system admins handling their task more efficiently using Tmux. So then you will try to, okay, let me just learn this as well. So I'll be able to handle my task in an efficient manner. That's all, nothing else.
okay,
Yeah,
okay.
right. Okay, so yeah, I was telling you about this SSH session. okay, that I have created here. So you guys can see here, I am. So what is the best part of this thing? Like, what is the best part of me running a Kali Linux environment in the cloud, doing an SSH to connect it? Hmm? Can you tell me what is the best part of it? Okay, maybe there is something in the chat. I've not opened it in a while. Let me just check it out. Okay, there's nothing in the chat. So can you guys tell me what is the best part?
Remote connection,
Yeah, remote connection is
hardware
fine.
dependency,
Hmm.
hardware dependency,
Hardware dependencies,
scalability.
scalability is also good, right? So it's like if tomorrow I need to do something which is very resource intensive, that my laptop or my system hardware is not capable of, I can just select that appropriate instance from cloud and let it run in cloud itself. That's one thing. Another thing is that you would have, if you are using some older processor like i3 i5, okay, so if you are running multiple instances, multiple virtual machines in your system, you would have observed your system getting lagged day in day out. Okay, your performance is going to deplete. So that kind of stuff is not going to happen here. Okay, you would be able to run Kali Linux very smoothly. Okay, you can just do an SSH through your Windows command prompt. You have a working Kali Linux, you have a working Windows, and without any hardware limitations. That's the key thing here. Okay. Okay. So I hope from this point you guys can explore further into the cloud. Okay. And another thing is that there are ways by which you can install a desktop environment in your Kali Linux, in any of your Linux which is running in the cloud. Okay, you can just install a GUI there and get a remote desktop session, just like a VNC session, huh? Probably.
How? Is it like you're talking about some kind of hypervisor kind of situation?
No, I'm not talking about hypervisor kind of situation. It's like you just need to install a desktop environment here, and then like currently I'm accessing this instance using CLI only,
Yes.
right? So that way, if someone, it's like, let's say, let's give an example of Bob Suit. Okay, Bob Suit is a GUI based tool, right? I cannot just do Bob Suit through CLI. So for that purpose, let's say you want to do Bob Suit, you can just add GUI over here, and you can have a GUI access. Okay.
Can you show a bit maybe? Like how can we do it?
Okay, I have not tried this thing in the AWS. I tried it in cloud, Google Cloud Compute, and it was working perfectly fine. GUI, let me just type. I believe it was there in Sam Baumi class. I'm not able to recall where exactly I did that, but I did it someday. This is another resource for you guys. Okay, if you want to study more, want to explore further, these are free courses available here. Okay.
Just share the link.
The link. Okay, let me just copy it, shared it, old classes.
How many computing platform have you done? Like AWS, Google Cloud, and Azure. All three of them, or only these two?
How many of these platforms are we going to cover?
Yes. Or no, no. How many have you learned?
How
You,
many I
Keshav.
have learned? Okay, I
Yeah,
have
yeah.
no experience with Microsoft Azure, zero
Okay.
experience. Never made an account, never visited the website. But
Okay.
I have my hands-on experience on configuring machines on cloud compute, Google Cloud Compute. I have an account there as well, um, and AWS.
Which one is easy? Google or AWS?
AWS, I would say. Okay. Yeah, here it is. Here are the steps that you can follow. And basically, what Google provides is Google is providing this website. Google is basically providing you to uh, have remote desktop access through the Chrome browser itself. Okay. So here is the link. I'm sharing this link in the chat. You can follow along this link. Okay, it works perfectly fine. I have gone through these steps and it worked. Okay. Yes, this was the similar GUI that I got, and I was able to access my remote machine through my browser itself. Through my browser, I was able to get that VNC session. I need to retrieve my credentials here as well. It's been a long time since I have logged in. Get started free. Oh, I just need to log in here. No, not going to log in right now. So I've already provided you with the link. Okay, you guys can follow along with this link, and you can set up your GUI there. Okay. Connection to this IP address closed. And one more thing, this is your dynamic public IP address which is being allotted to you. Okay, this is not static public IP address. Okay. So once I'm done with whatever task I need to perform, I can simply click here and just go to actions, instance state, and click on stop. Yes, stop. And so why I'm stopping this is because although I am in free tier, still I'm restricted with certain amount of hours per month which I can run my machine. Okay. So if I'm going to exceed those usage, I'll be charged. So that's the thing, that's the characteristic of cloud that we've already discussed. Pay as you go, pay per hour basis. Okay. It's like if you need a server running for only 4 hours, just start set it up here, run it for 4 hours, and just pay for the 4 hour cost. That's all. Okay. The server is stopped now. See, if you are going to be a system admin, you will see that a lot of these things are going to come in handy. There are this services of IAM services which are provided. Where is it? Here it is. Identity access management. Okay. I have my security monkey configured here. So these things are not relevant as of now with the respect of CH. But yeah, if you want to go further into cloud, you will be required to understand IAMs and a lot of stuff. What are groups, users, policies? You can configure them here. Okay. Roles. I have created some roles here. They are like security monkey role. Just click on here. I have configured certain policies as well here. What kind of permissions I am going to provide. Let's go here. Edit policy. A little bit of JSON. Well, just let's not overcomplicate it. Let's just close this thing. Close this thing as well. Okay, these are certain guides that you can refer to if you want to know how to connect, how to do SSH. Let me just copy paste it here in the chat. Okay, great. Yeah, guys. So, any doubts so far? Anything that is not clear? Anything you guys want me to iterate? Or shall I proceed further? No. All good. Great. So let's proceed further then. Okay. Let me just close this thing. Signed out. I'm having a hard time using this thing, this machine for my sessions. Well, anyways, so let me just do, instead of this, let me just do less. This would be better. Yeah, guys. So now let's talk about IoT. Okay. So can you guys explain me what is IoT? What do you understand by IoT? Hmm? What does IoT stands for? Anyone? Internet of Things, right? And what does IoT covers? IoT covers all those devices which are connected to the internet. Okay, that is IoT. What about others? I hope you guys have heard about this term earlier as well. You guys know a little bit about IoT. Like if I need to list devices, can you guys give me example for IoT devices? Hmm? Come up with at least one example. I want 4 examples here, one by everyone, one by each. Okay, no, smartphones are not IoT devices. What else? Drones. Drones, yes, you can say drones are IoT devices, but only those which are connected to internet. I cannot say those RC planes, which are simply there for shooting purposes, which are not connected to internet. They will not fall under it. Smart watches, yeah, this is good example. We can say nowadays watches are a lot smart. Hmm. IoT enabled bulbs. Yes, it's a very good example. Nowadays, you can control your bulbs remotely. You can connect your bulb to Wi-Fi even. Huh? Nice. As well as exploit them, right? Yes. We have a bulb here. We have smart plugs. Yeah, great. Good going, huh, guys? You have already become a hacker. Hmm. Smart plugs. We have a smart plug here. That's an IoT device. Okay. We have a bulb here, IoT bulb, and we try to exploit them, and they are pretty much easy as well. Okay, just give me a quick minute, guys. Yeah, so they are in fact exploitable as well. I cannot just show you a smart plug. I cannot just try to exploit it through this online medium. But what I can do is I can tell you uh, the smart plug that we have is your what was it? It was TP Link, I believe. TP Link smart plug. If I'm able to recall it, right? Let's go to images. This is how a smart plug looks like. Okay, HS100 is, I believe, which is available with us. So HS100, you will see how vulnerable they are. HS100. Just click on exploit. Huh? You will be able to remotely control this plug. Okay. It is available on the GitHub. Very easy. You can remotely control it. Client and Wireshark dissector. No need to use username and password. You don't need to know them. This is not the exploit. Um, I don't know if this is the model that we have. I believe it is 150 something. HS 110. Let me just type TP-Link smart plug exploit. GitHub. No, this is not the one. This is not the one. I believe this is the one. No, this is not the one. Not able to find it on the go. Not an issue. I need to know the exact model as well, which I need to. Well, anyways, so that was not my point here. I was trying to tell you guys the IoT devices. So smart plugs are the example for IoT devices. Smart bulbs, great. Nowadays, you will see there are smart robots as well. Your home cleaning robots. Have you guys seen them? Hmm? The robot which can clean your house automatically. Hmm? It gets itself charged up automatically. It's going to keep on moving in your home, just cleaning everything. Hmm. When the battery is low, it is going to get back to its docker and refuel. So there are a lot of stuff out there. It's like nowadays you have smart fridges, smart refrigerator. That's one and the same thing. Smart AC, smart geysers. Okay, smart watches. So what happens is you have a smart washing machine. It is connected to the internet. You have smart AC. You can just control that AC remotely, and like you can just switch it on 30 minutes before you are going to arrive at your home. Okay, just because you want the temperature to be appropriate when you arrive. So I believe, how many of you guys have seen Mr. Robot? Hmm? In there was a scene in which I believe she was the lawyer, if I'm not wrong. It's been a long time. I have, but not completed. Don't worry, I have also not completed. Okay, it's a very big show. Nobody got that much amount of time. So in the first season itself, there was this smart house. Okay, which was hacked. Hmm. Yeah, this was the lady. Smartwatch not responding. So you'll see here your sound system, your temperature system, your water temperature, room temperature, everything was hacked. Okay, everything was centralized, everything was IoT, and everything was hacked. Suddenly, this lady's house became haunted house, mm, haunted home, and she had no other option than to abandon the house and leave it. Okay. So I'll just leave this video in the chat box for your guys' entertainment. Well, coming back to the point, so that's a very brief overview of IoT. Let's talk about it a little further. So there in the IoT architecture, there are 5 layers out there. Okay, just like in your TCP/IP OSI model, multiple layers. Similarly, so I'm not going to go into detail of these layers. I'm just going to try to map these layers to those standard networking layers. So at the top we have application layer. Okay, an application layer can be mapped to the application layer itself for the TCP/IP model, responsible for your user experience and user interface. I believe that is the purpose of application layer. This is the layer with which the user interacts with. That is the application layer. Okay. Then we have middleware layer, internet layer, access gateway, edge technology. Edge technology layer is something like your physical layer. Okay. That is finally responsible for putting your data from data into the wire. That is edge technology. Your hardware devices are covered there. Okay. I believe someone is having some doubt.
Yeah, with the edge technology layer, are we talking about this communication over wireless domain, like
It
wireless
can
or
be
wired domain?
wireless or it can be wired.
Okay.
It can be wired or it can be wireless. Okay, let me just uh, stop this video. Okay, yeah. So internet layer. Internet layer is just like your network layer, internet layer in your TCP model. Okay, responsible for your uh, IP addressing and TCP/IP UDP transport layer protocols. And middleware layer is something which allows your translation between protocol translations between application to internet layer. If you further want to elaborate it, you can just draw some parallels between the session layer and I believe presentation layer. Yeah, I remember the networking stuff as well. Well, yeah, the presentation layer and the session layer, they can be mapped to the middleware layer. And similarly, your physical layer, data link layer can be mapped to your access gateway layer. Okay, responsible for your protocol translation between internet and edge technology layer. Okay, and you can see here that as I have mentioned, internet layer is responsible for endpoint connectivity. Okay, okay. Basically, your TCP UDP is implemented here. Okay, your transport layer is being implemented here. Okay, then we have got certain IoT technologies over here. Okay, definitely these are not those things which are going to be talked in depth about. Okay, we are just going to be looking into them as within a high level overview. So we have divided these technologies into three parts, three types: wired, wireless, and operating systems. Okay. How many of you guys know that IoT devices have their dedicated operating systems, different and dedicated OSs? Hmm? How many of you guys know this fact? Do you know? Hmm? Lakshya, do you know? Nope. What about others? So basically, there are dedicated operating system out there, okay, that you guys should be aware of. Like, why I'm telling you this is because uh, now at least you must be aware of the technology out there, because there may be someday where you can try to implement these technologies in your corporate environment, okay. And I believe your managers are going to appreciate it as well. If you just come up with some new tech and you just assure them that okay, I will be able to implement it. Hmm? Or else I'll be able to help you out in that. So if I just need to give you an example, there is something known as Windows 10 IoT. That's the Windows 10 operating system for IoT devices. Okay. There is something known as Ubuntu Core. Hmm? Ubuntu Core. That's the operating system for IoT devices. If you want to make a Linux-based IoT device, you can use Ubuntu Core. Okay. So again, Ubuntu Core is not the only one. Ubuntu Core is just one among them, one out of them. There is something known as uh, RTOS, or RTOS is your real-time operating system. There is something known as Riot OS. Okay, again another uh, distro for IoT devices. And when I say IoT devices, can you guys create your own IoT device at your home? Hmm? Do you know? Can you have you heard about them? Like you can just create an IoT device probably by tomorrow. Hmm? No, no one. How? By using a very cheap hardware. Okay, that is Raspberry Pi. Hmm? You know about it? What is a Raspberry Pi? So Raspberry Pi is essentially your microprocessor. Okay, Raspberry Pi is an example. Your Arduino chips is an example. See, Arduinos can also be used, but Arduinos are not microprocessors. They are essentially your microcontrollers. Okay, and let me just show you. This is how your Raspberry Pi looks like. Okay, for those people who have not seen this thing prior. This is how Raspberry Pi looks like. Okay, what you can do is you can just get a Raspberry Pi. You can set up an IoT based operating system here. So Raspbian is the operating system which comes pre-installed, which is default for Raspberry Pis. But there are these other operating systems as well, like Riot OS, Ubuntu Core, Windows IoT. You can run a Windows IoT in a Raspberry Pi. That is totally possible. What you can do is you can create some kind of a network sensor using Raspberry Pi, and you can deploy it at a various endpoints in your network. Okay, you can build your own firewall using Raspberry Pi. Okay, because what happens in your home environment is there is not going to be any firewall implemented in your home environment, right? Because not a lot of people think about getting a hardware based firewall and implement it in their home network. But with this Raspberry Pi, you guys are given this ability, or you can say the power of creating your own network sensors. Create whatever you want to create and just let it running for 24/7. Hmm? I have one. I have configured one. I have one running. I have set up a firewall here. I have set up a cloud server here, cloud storage here, a firewall here. Everything is feasible and possible here. You just need to, if one warning, one fair share of warning. If you want this hardware to be running 24/7, you need to have some kind of a cooling system as well attached to it. Okay, you need to install some heat sinks over the processors. Okay, that's main thing. And you can get a fan as well dedicated for Raspberry Pis. If you guys are not aware of this fact, let me just tell you. You can just, where did you get the code to configure? No, I did not need any code to configure. It's like if I just give you an example of setting up a DNS server. So I just started with the DNS server for the first time when I configured it, and it was very easy. Okay, what I did was I just went to Pi-hole, a black hole for internet advertisements. So what I did was I created this hardware device, which was Raspberry Pi. I connected it to my network, and suddenly all the advertisements in every device which is connected to my network went away. Okay, this is your Pi-hole, network wide ad blocker. Doesn't this thing seems to be nice, huh? Too good to be true. You guys can create this one by yourself. So these kind of stuff should create, should generate curiosity in your minds. Okay, should fascinate you. If these kind of stuffs are not fascinating you, then maybe something else would fascinate you. Okay, but I've always been fascinated by this kind of stuff, so always tried experimenting along with them. So essentially, when I configured it, what I realized was Pi-hole is nothing. Okay, it is just creating my DNS, but not through with Raspberry Pi. Okay, you have done this thing, right? Yeah, you can do this thing, but why I'm doing the with Raspberry Pi is because it is going to be consuming less power. Okay, I can set up a DNS server with a physical server, but that is going to be more resource intensive. I can deploy firewall as well, hardware based firewall. I can deploy hardware based sensors in my network, but they are going to be more expensive and more resource intensive. Okay, they will consume more electricity. So that's the reason why Raspberry Pis are preferred over them. If you want to set up Pi-hole only, you do not need to get Raspberry Pi 4. You can just go for Raspberry Pi 0. That is going to work perfectly fine. This is the cheapest Raspberry Pi that is available out there. Okay, it comes under 1,000 rupees. That's how it looks like. Okay, you can create your own NAS network, NAS Raspberry Pi 4. Just attach a couple of hard drives to your Raspberry Pi and your NAS is ready. Hmm? Your home NAS system. Great, huh? You guys can look into it. Try exploring this stuff out. Whole lot of stuff is out there. Right. So that's why I was telling you about these operating system. Okay. When you will be uh, trying to create something, trying to configure something, okay, at that time you will be needing these kind of operating systems. Okay. Let's get back here. And for those people who have not seen Arduino, do we know Arduino? No, that's how they look like. Small microcontrollers, generally used for robotics purposes. You can create your own quadcopter using an Arduino. You can program your Diwali lights using Arduino. Okay, you can create a automatic watering system for your plants using Arduinos. Endless opportunities. You guys can try exploring this stuff. Arduino as well. Okay. Yes, definitely. You can create a rubber ducky as well. That just skipped my mind. Okay. Rubber ducky is something which is very famous in our pen testing domain. Hmm. At least you can try creating a rubber ducky. And for rubber ducky, there are scripts available on the GitHub. I have two with me. Great, huh? On the go, hacking on the go. And yes, with the rubber ducky in mind, when with the hacking in mind, you can deploy your Kali Linux in Raspberry Pi as well. Okay, you can get a on the go hacking distro, hacking machine with you everywhere you go. Okay, you can attach a small screen over it. Maybe you guys would have seen something like uh, hacking device. Portable hacking device using Raspberry Pi. How to build beginner hacking kit with Raspberry Pi. A lot of stuff. Let's get back here. So we have some wired technologies here as well. So some operating systems which have been covered here. Some wired technologies which are like Ethernet cable, MOCA, PLCs. Ethernet cables you are already aware of. You have always seen them. You have always plugged them. Okay. Uh, Maybe if somebody is way too much into networking, they would have used that. What do we call it? Uh, what is that device? That cabling connector device. I don't know. Skip my mind. Well, anyways, so the cables with those RJ45 connectors, those are Ethernet cables. Okay. Then we've got MOCs. MOCs as well. You have seen them. Maybe you are not able to recognize it right now, but they are nothing but your coaxial cables. The cables which are used in cable TVs. Hmm? Let me just show you an image. Let me just search for coaxial. Wherever are you trying to connect from other device? Is it you? Vaibhav, can you hear me? Vaibhav, can you hear me? I cannot hear you. Maybe some network issues. Well, let's continue. So yeah, this is how your MOCA cables looks like. Okay, and that's what I told you, that you guys have already seen these cables, right, in your cable TVs. That's how they look like. Then we have got something known as PLCs, that are your power line cables or power line communication cables. Those are like your heavy wires which are used for connecting two towers. Okay, those are your PLCs. Then we have got something in wireless communication. Okay, in wireless communication, there are further categorization between short range, medium range, and your long range communications. Okay, in short range, technologies are like Li-Fi, Wi-Fi, BL, Bluetooth, NFC, RFID. Okay, Wi-Fi is something that you have already used, and you are connected for this meeting using Wi-Fi itself. Okay, Li-Fi is something out of the future. That is Li-Fi. That is also known as light fidelity. Okay. Then we have something like NFC, RFID. Okay. Okay, I have some message in the chat. Yeah, no, I was just asking like you were getting connected with two devices. I was just trying to confirm. That's all, nothing else. Okay, so yeah, RFID is your radio frequency identifier. Can you tell me where in your day-to-day life you have been using RFID? Some example for RFID, huh? Office gates, right? Metro cards, yeah, Metro card is also a good example. Your automobiles, cars, hmm? Your central locking system, FASTag. Okay, maybe I do not know about FASTags, how they operate, but if you are saying they are using RFID, let's believe it. Okay, I'm not sure with FASTags. So, okay, do you know there is a attack against this RFID that is known as rolling code attack? Let me just write it here. Rolling code attack. Anyone anyone who have already heard about this thing? What is rolling code attack? No one? No replies? So rolling code attack. So rolling code attack is something that is like, what happens in case of rolling code attack is there are specialized hardware devices like Blade RF or Hack RF. Hack RF is an example. Blade RF is another example. These hardware devices are generally covered under the SDR hacking category. Okay. Again, this is something which is a dedicated niche. Uh, the pen testing domain. Nuand is the company who created Blade RF. Let's see. Yeah, so that's how your Blade RF looks like. These are specialized hardware devices which are used for SDR hacking. SDR is your software defined radio. Okay. SDR hacking is another niche domain in the hacking domain. Okay. So what attacker does is attacker is going to have this specialized hardware device, either Blade RF or Hack RF or something other, something similar to that. Hmm. What attacker is going to do is, let me just get an image for some reference here. Rolling code attack. Images here. Let's go. Okay, no, this is not the good one. This can be a good reference here. Okay, so this is how this is going to look like. You will, there is going to be an attacker. This is an attacker. Okay, what attacker is going to do is attacker is going to have this again. This rolling code attack is again shown in the Mr. Robot as well. Maybe you would have seen that car hacking scene in Mr. Robot, where they were able to hack into a car. How many of you recall it? Seen it? Great. No need to message me privately. You can text it in the everyone group. Right. So what happens is basically attacker is going to come up with this specialized device, and the attacker haven't watched. Not an issue. That's why I have been focusing on Mr. Robot for so long, right? So they have shown some realistic hacking techniques there. Okay. So yeah, coming back to my point, what happens in case of rolling code attack is there is going to be an attacker is going to send some jamming signal. So there is going to be a remote and a car. What does remote do is remote is going to send, remote is basically a radio frequency emitter, and your car is your radio frequency receiver. Okay, what remote is going to do is remote is going to emit certain specific radio frequencies. Okay, that is going to be received by the car, and car is programmed that okay, whenever I'm going to receive this frequency, I'm supposed to get unlocked. Okay, what attacker is going to do, attacker is going to jam, send some junk data to that receiver, and it is going to jam that signal. Okay, and it is going to wait for the original, for the car's owner to send that unlocking signals from the remote. Once the owner of the car presses that button, those signals are going to be sniffed and captured by the attacker. Once they are captured, they can be replayed at a later point of time to unlock the car. Okay. Is this thing clear? Yes. What about others? Lakshyan Vaibhav says it. This is clear. Monica also says this is clear. What about Ben? Thank you, Sagar. ठीक है. What about you, Ben? Not able to hear me? Are you there? So that was your rolling coded attack. Okay, let's proceed further. Mm, then there are your IoT. So I believe in web application, during the web application modules, I told you that there is something known as OWASP top 10 for web apps. Do you guys recall? Able to recall? No one is able to recall. Hmm? There is something known as OWASP top 10 for web application. Yes, right. So there is OWASP top 10 vulnerabilities for IoT as well. Okay. OWASP top 10 IoT. Okay. Let's just go to GitHub. And just like BWAP, we have got IoT Goat. Okay. For you guys to practice attacks on IoT. So here we have OWASP top 10 IoT 2018. 2018 is the latest list out there for IoT devices. Okay. So they are pretty easy and self-explanatory in nature. Okay. So let's see what kind of attack vectors do we have here? What kind of vulnerabilities do we have here? We have got something like weak or guessable or hard-coded passwords. They are like a lot of times you would have observed the IoT devices comes with hard-coded passwords. Like either the password is going to be mentioned on the hardware itself, or else maybe the password is mentioned on the hardware. Also, it is hard-coded in the sense like you are not allowed to change the password as well. That's one thing. Another thing is that if there are going to be weak and default and guessable passwords, again, that's also a vulnerability. Like if I just ask, how many of you guys have actually changed the default credentials for router? Hmm? Anyone? I believe no one. I have. Weber is a cyber security enthusiast. Okay. So this device is not ethical. Why it is available? I have changed as well. Yeah, Lakshya is another cyber security enthusiast. Huh? You guys are already hackers, huh? You guys are supposed to change, but I don't know how to mask admin page. Well, don't worry. Nobody's going to attack your router. Even if it would not be even accessible through the internet. Okay. So the device is not ethical. I believe the device that you are talking about is the SDR hacking device, huh? The Blade RF you are referring to. Yes, right. Yes. So it is not ethical, and it is not legal to possess such device in the Indian territory. That is illegal. Okay, it's an offense. But still, we do have a Blade RF in our office. Okay, we do have Hack RF and all the SDR devices. So what happens is, if see, first of all, these devices are not available by some Indian vendor. That's one thing. If you want this device, you need to order it from outside. Okay, you will go to the official Nuant website. You will place an order. But what is going to happen is this device is going to be stuck at the custom itself. Okay, and when you go to the custom, they will ask you to get a clearance, custom clearance from your MITI, MITY, Ministry of Electronics and Communications. Hmm? So at the end of the day, you are not going to get a clearance from there because you are not going to have any ethical purpose for that. Okay, these are certain banned devices, but still we live in India, huh? Jugaad. India is famous for jugaad, right? Still we have it. Rest you can assume. hmm? I believe. How do we have it? Right? I do not need to be explicit in everything. So, yeah, a lot of things which are not ethical are still available in India. Don't worry about that. Well, getting back to my point, weak guessable password, insecure. Okay, there are something known as insecure network services where we are basically trying to refer like you can say use of weak protocols. You can say unencrypted protocol. A lot of times you would have seen that these IP cameras are your IoT device. A lot of IoT devices are there out there, and you would have observed that they are not implemented on HTTPS. They are implemented on HTTP, right? So that's again an insecure network service. That's one thing. Most of the times, no security mechanisms are applied there because nobody cares about them. Okay, nobody thinks that okay, this thing can be a threat to us. This thing can be a threat to the environment, to our network environment. Okay, we've got insecure ecosystems, interfaces like weak GUI. If the interface in itself is weak, like okay, Monica, do you have something to speak? Trying to say something, waiting for me to shut up. Hmm? No. Can we order separate components of data and compile it later? Is that feasible? No, that is not feasible, not possible. I have seen the board of the Blade RF, and that is not possible in reality until and unless you are not a electronics engineer, something like that. Okay, the board is very complex in itself, and it's a multi-layered board in itself. It's not a single layer board. I believe it's like a 10 layered. There are 10 layers uh, in that board. Okay, so practically that is not feasible for you to. You are what you are saying is basically that you would be able to create something of yourself. That is not possible. Okay. Then there are some others as well here. Okay. Some important ones are like lack of physical hardening. Okay. When I say lack of physical hardening, it is pretty self-explanatory. Like you have an IoT device, it's a physical hardware device, and if somebody is having some physical access to that device, then that person can also exploit it, right? Like most of the times you would have seen this thing in the movies that the attacker is able to access the camera physically and it does something, maybe something to the wires. It just tries to add something to the camera and the video feed changes. A video feed becomes static, something like that. Hmm. So that is lack of physical hardening. You have an IoT device, you need to protect it physically as well. Okay. Then we have got certain self-explanatory things like use of insecure or outdated components. Hmm. Whatever components which are being used while the development of the IoT devices, if they are already vulnerable to something and still you are using those components, so that is again a vulnerability. It's like you are trying to deploy a website on Windows 7 server. Hmm. That is insecure and outdated component. Okay, that's one thing. Then we have got something like lack of vendor support, hmm, lack of device management. Then we have got lack of secure update mechanism. So a lot of times you will see that no vendor support is provided in case of IoT devices. Vendors do not care about once they have shipped you. Once they have sold you their IoT device, they are not going to provide you with any service. They are not going to provide you with the update mechanism, any update mechanism. Okay, the firmware and the software is very difficult to be updated in IoT devices. It is so difficult that a lot of people, first of all, do not know about this fact that okay, there are something known as updating and patching in case of IoT devices as well. And second of all, if somebody knows that, then that person do not know how to update it or how to patch it. That's another thing. Now let's say that person knows that okay, how to update it and how to patch it. Then there's another issue. Another issue is that the vendor is not going to release any update or release any patch. Okay, so these are certain security risks. Okay, I hope you guys have some clarity now by this time, by this point of time. Hmm? You want to look into more, I'll share this link as well in the chat. Any doubts, this is the time, you can ask me now. Tell me. Everyone is sleeping. Hmm? At 5 o'clock also you are sleeping, 4 o'clock you are also sleeping, 3 o'clock you are also sleeping. Huh? It's raining hard today. Ain't sleeping. Okay. So, how to practice IoT security? So, one thing that I have discussed in between, I just went through it in a bit. There's something known as IoT GOAT. Hmm? Firmware security testing. So you can just try to follow along this guide. Okay. Build from the source, how to set it up. Everything is mentioned here. Everything is covered here. I am not in Rohini, Lakshay. I am in Saket. If I was in Rohini, we would be having our classes from past 2 to 3 days. Hmm? I have my desktop configured there, but I told you probably maybe you guys are aware of or not. I do not have a functional laptop now. Hmm? So well, so okay. Yes, I reside in Rohini. I reside in Rohini, but right now I am in Saket. Offices are open now, and you can stop texting me in private. You can just text me in everyone group so that other people are able to follow along. They do not feel left out. Okay. So yeah, but now offices are open. If you guys want to have offline sessions, you guys can come to the premise. Okay. You can attend offline session as well. Okay. Okay. Well, let me share that link here. This is the IoT code project. Okay, I just got a notification saying Monica raised the hand. Yes, Monica, you have some doubt. You want to ask something, Monica? It's nothing. You just keep on experimenting with this interface, huh? Let's try to unmute. Let's try to raise an hand, huh? Let's try to do something. Let's see what does this button do, huh? Great. No, it's my nephew. So he's also learning the hacking, huh? You are going to make him a hacker at this very young age. Great. Good. Good to know that. Well, coming back to my point here, we have got this IoT based search engine. A lot of people are aware of this thing. Okay. This is not the only one. There are other search engines as well, like Census. Maybe you guys would have heard about Census or not. It is Census. Oops, Sense, not Census. It is Sys. Census.io. Okay. These are certain IoT based search engines that you can use. Active IP addresses, ports, protocols, whole lot of stuff. So what happens is, if you are going to become a black hat hacker, okay, and you are like, uh, you want to earn money, what generally attackers are going to do is, like, you uh, got to know about some recent vulnerability, okay, and you want to create a malware, you want to create a ransomware, okay. Just take an example for WannaCry. Okay. So during your information gathering phase, when you want to target devices at large, you just go here, just click on explore, and you know that, okay, Windows 7 is vulnerable to this fact, this attack. Let's go here. Webcams. Nope. Let's just search for databases. ICS. These are ICS systems. Okay, databases. I can just search for databases as well. Okay, if I know specific vulnerabilities against specific brand cameras, I can search for it here. Specific databases, specific video games. Okay, that's one way. I'm not going to log in here. More reasons. Cisco FTP IP. Or else let me just do here. The filter is OS colon Windows. Okay, this filter is not going to work right now because I have not been logged in here. Okay, but that's how you start searching here. Okay, you are going to see that how many Windows 7 operating systems are connected around the globe. Okay, and that's how it happens. That's how it starts. There is going to be a threat map here as well. See, Showdown.io is very good website. I would suggest you guys to explore this stuff a little by yourself. You can see live attacks being happening, not in the monitor part. Where is it? Let me just search for it. A lot of different variety of threat maps are available out there. Okay, you can look into them. FireEye cyber threat map. Okay, what kind of attacks are happening? You can see a new attack from Ireland, Algeria to Taiwan. Okay, attacks today so far 5,15,000 attacks. Okay, so this is something of interest. You can just look into it. Okay. Yeah, so I believe that would be that much would be all for today's session. Okay. These are real times. Yes, I have something in the chat. Yes, they are real time. Those are real times. Any doubt? Anyone? Something is not clear. You can ask me. Vaibhav, did you try doing Mr. Robot at Try Hack Me? Okay, yeah, not an issue because see, in the next session, I'm going to go through the Mr. Robot machine, and as of now, I have not been able to configure the Mr. Robot machine in here. So what I was planning was I'll take the target from Try Hack Me itself. Okay, that's why I was asking this. Well, not an issue. Okay. So in our next session, that is going to be tomorrow, same time. Okay, we'll start by 3.